Well, hey United students, Pastor Jeremy here, and I'm excited. We're having an online virtual Bible study, and this is going to be a little bit different, so I need you to grab three things like right now. I need you to get your Bible, I need you to get a piece of paper, and I need you to get a pen, like right now. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pause the video and go get that stuff. Wait, pause right now, go get it. I'll be waiting for you. Well, hopefully you have those things now because we are going to get into this brief Bible study. And so if you have your Bible, turn over to Mark chapter 6. Mark chapter 6, and maybe you have your phone, but Mark chapter 6, we're going to read a story that's perhaps a familiar one. It's about Jesus. And so Mark chapter 6, verse 45, here's what the Bible says. It says this: "Immediately he, Jesus, made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side to Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. After he said goodbye to them, he went away to the mountain to pray." Verse 47 says this: "Well into the night, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he was alone on the land." Verse 48 says this: "Jesus saw them," the disciples. Look what they were doing. They were straining at the oars because the wind was against them. Very early in the morning, he came toward them walking on the water, and he wanted to pass by them. When they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out because they were terrified. Immediately he spoke with them, and Jesus told them three things. He says this: "Have courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." Verse 51 says this. It's the last verse we'll read together. "Then he got into the boat with him, and the wind ceased." So Jesus says some important things to the disciples. He says, have courage, it is I, don't be afraid. We're going to talk about that, but here's what I need you to do. I need you to grab that piece of paper that you have in your hand, grab that pen, and what we're going to do is this: we're going to draw, okay? I want you to draw on your paper a boat. Maybe a little boat, maybe a cruise ship, draw whatever, but draw a boat. And then underneath the boat, I want you to draw some waves because that's going to illustrate our story. So let's pause the video right now. I want to see those beautiful pictures on Instagram. Tag us and show us a picture of a boat with waves on the water. So we'll pause and go ahead and do that. Well, hopefully you got your boat ready. You got your waves crashing against the boat, because here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about that boat and the waves. You see, in the story, that boat represents our life. Right now, in our boat, we have waves crashing. The waves are representing life. Right now, you are not at school, you're at home, you can't go anywhere, you can't hang out. Like, we are in a crazy, crazy season. This is unprecedented for us. Like, we can't even meet together as a church. And so we have a lot of waves coming after us. And right now, it sounds fun to be able to be out of school and not have to go to class, but really, this is creating and causing a lot of fear and anxiety against us. And so the waves are really crashing at us right now. So here's what I want you to do. Underneath the waves that you drew, I want you to write down two things that are crashing against you. Maybe it's loneliness. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's some anxiety. But write down, right now, we're going to pause the video and write down two waves that are crashing against the boat of your life. Well, I don't know what you wrote down, but I want you to know that there's good news. It's not just about us in this boat with the waves crashing against us, because there is a hero in the story, and his name is Jesus. We just read a moment ago that Jesus is walking on the water, but there's an interesting phrase that when I first read it, I was like, that makes no sense to me, because it says Jesus was going to pass by them. And I began thinking, like, wait, Jesus likes to help people, but Jesus was going to walk by them? Like, what is that about? And as I began reading the passage and kind of looking it over, what I realized was that Jesus, I believe, was waiting to see if the disciples would recognize him, if the disciples would call out to him. Because here's the thing, Jesus is here for us, but Jesus wants you to reach out to him. Jesus knows that we are in a boat, our waves are crashing, the things that you wrote down, he knows the hurts of your heart, he knows the anxiety in your spirit, he knows the discouragement and the loneliness and the isolation that you, your family, all of us are feeling. Jesus is there with us, and he's walking on the water to us, but he's going to see if we're going to call out to him. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pause the video again, and on your sheet, I want you to write out just a 2-sentence prayer to Jesus. Maybe you say, Jesus, I'm lonely right now. Jesus, would you please heal me? Would you please come and just help me to have peace? Help me to have hope. So right now, just 2 sentences, write down a prayer calling out to Jesus. Well, hopefully you wrote that prayer down, because the next part is this. That was our response to Jesus. Jesus is waiting for us to call out to him, and we just did that. But here's what Jesus' response was to us. Are you ready for this? Jesus said, he tells us in verse 50, he says 3 things that we're going to write down, okay? So get your pen ready. The first thing that Jesus tells us is this, and write these 2 words down. He says, have courage. So write down, have courage. That's number 1. Jesus tells us to have courage. Do you know what that means? That means that you are strong. Jesus is reminding us that we are strong. We're not strong because we have an amazing personality, or we are so talented, or we're so athletic. We are strong because Jesus is with us. And so Jesus is reminding us, hey, have courage. That's the first thing to write down, okay? Here's the second thing to write down. Are you ready? This one's super easy. Jesus tells us the second thing is this. He says, it is I. It is I. Jesus is reminding the disciples, and he's reminding you that Jesus is here. You see, you are not alone. Now, I can't be with you. I'm talking to you through a camera. We're not able to get together in the youth center or the middle school room. We're not able to hang out together physically right now. But I want you to know that Jesus is with you when I'm not. Jesus is with you when a youth leader isn't. Jesus is with you when you're not at school, when you are feeling alone. Jesus is with you because he tells the disciples, it is I. Jesus is here. But there's a third thing that Jesus tells the disciples that I want you to write down as well. Are you ready? We wrote down already, have courage. That means that you are strong. We wrote down, it is I. That means Jesus is here. But the third thing I want you to write down is this. Get your pen out. He tells the disciples, and he tells you today, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Now that seems impossible right now. Right now, we are in a season and a state in our country where we're not able to go outside, we're not able to meet together, and there's a lot of fear because of what's happening. But Jesus, as he's telling the disciples who are in this storm, the waves are crashing against their boat just like it is with us. Jesus reminds the disciples, don't be afraid. Do you know what he means by that? Do you know what he's telling us today and what he's telling you right now? He's telling us, hey, we will be okay. We're going to be okay. We're going to get through this. Our church is going to love you. I'm going to love you. Our leaders, Pastor Dave, we're going to love your family. We're going to love this community. God is going to take care of us. But Jesus reminds us, don't be afraid. We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And so hopefully you wrote those 3 things down, because I want you to remember that in the middle of a storm, in the middle of a season where we can't even be in the same room, Jesus is with us wherever we are. And so I want to remind you and encourage you with that. Now I want to show you a video. It's called the Daily Replay. Now let me explain this to you, and if you're in high school, perhaps you've heard me talk about this, but in the middle of an anxious world, that's what we're talking about right now, is having faith in an anxious world. We talked about a few weeks ago that I want to remind you, if you didn't hear it, no worries, I'm going to catch you up right now. But there is a way of praying called the Daily Replay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this video about that, and then I'll come back and we're going to go through that very quickly. And I'm going to ask you, hey, you've got time on your hands. You are looking for things to do. Every day this week, I'm going to ask you to do the Daily Replay prayer. And that way you can feel connected to God and be reminded that he is with you. So let's watch this video on the Daily Replay, and then I'll come back and we're going to talk through that.
The Daily Replay, a helpful way to pray.
The Daily Replay helps you reflect as you rewind through your day.
As you rewind through your day.
As a prayer, it is an act of worship.
But it is also a habit we can form to help center and focus ourselves.
It is based on an ancient practice of prayer that has been used for hundreds of years.
Today we use a prayer to guide us through 5 steps. 1.
1. Become aware of God's presence.
Find a quiet place away from distractions.
Take several minutes to breathe. As you allow your body to grow quiet, become aware of God's presence with you now and throughout your day. You could ask yourself a question like, where has God been at work in my life today?
Two.
Number 2.
Review the day with gratitude. Take a moment to give thanks and reflect on questions like,
What are good things that have happened today? What can I be thankful for? Number 3.
3. Pay attention to your emotions. Ask yourself about how you felt at different points of the day
Both pleasant.
and unpleasant.
You could look back at difficult moments of your day and think about where God might be at work in those challenging times.
4.
Number 4. Forgive.
And ask for forgiveness. Take some time to look at your day through the eyes of the people around you. Ask yourself, where can you take the first step in restoring peace?
Take a moment to reflect on where you may have missed the mark today.
Where might I need to ask for forgiveness? 5.
Number 5.
Look ahead to tomorrow. As you look at tomorrow,
What do you hope will be different?
what would you like to ask God for help with?
The daily replay can be done anywhere, anytime.
Using this prayer practice day after day makes it an easy habit to turn to.
When our days get challenging. One, two.
Rewind
Anywhere.
anytime.
So the daily replay has 5 ingredients. Are you ready? If you want to write these down, you can, but let me tell you, it's a lot of words that I don't want you to feel like you're in school, okay? So here's the first part, if you remember from the video. The first part of the daily replay is this. You are to become aware of God's presence. If you just sit for a minute, turn off Netflix, shut off Spotify, just sit for just a few moments of silence and just remind yourself that God is with us. Don't think about school or don't think about what's happening in the world. Just focus right now on God. Becoming aware of God's presence. That's step number 1. Here's step number 2. Are you ready? The next thing you want to write down is this. To review the day with gratitude. So you know what that means? That means that we need to write down some things that we're thankful for. And by the way, even in this weird season that we're in, we can still be thankful for things. We can still be thankful for blessings that God has given to us, even in this weird, difficult season. So we want to become aware of God's presence. We want to review the day with gratitude. But here's the third thing, and this is going to be so important right now. The third aspect of the daily replay is that we need to pay attention to our emotions. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. If you're feeling sad, or if you're feeling lonely, feeling isolated, I'm going to ask you if you would just reach out to us through Instagram, if you would email us, if you would text us, and I'll give you all the ways that you can do that at the end of our video, that we want you to feel connected to us. Now again, we're not going to be able to hang out and go to Starbucks or have lunch, but we can still text, we can still message. We've been doing Zoom Hangouts with Pastor Dave, and we'll have all the information for you to be able to do that as well. But we want you to know that we want you to pay attention to the emotions that you're feeling, because right now is a season where you're going to feel lonely and discouraged and upset and sad and fearful, and we want to help you with that. God is with you, but we're going to help support you through that as well. That's the third aspect of the daily replay. Here's the fourth one. Are you ready to write this down? You need to forgive and ask for forgiveness. You're going to be isolated when you're home with your brothers and sisters. You're going to do things that you shouldn't have done. You're going to say things that you wish you would have said. You're going to feel like, claustrophobic. You're going to feel these things, and we need to walk in forgiveness. Your parents are going to be stressed out right now. Your grandparents are going to be fearful and anxious right now. Our world right now, we're just kind of a little bit stressed. And so we might do things, say things that we're not really meaning, but we're gonna have to be quick to forgive in this season right now. So the fourth aspect of the daily replay is to walk in forgiveness. Here's the fifth one, and if you've joined me in all four, I would give you a gold star if I was with you for sure. But here's the fifth aspect of the daily replay. That's this: look toward tomorrow. Look toward tomorrow. We want to look for hope. We want to look for good news. This season that we're in is not going to last forever. Remember, Jesus told us, don't be afraid. That means that we're going to be okay. Now, we don't know if it's going to be weeks or months. We don't know what tomorrow holds, but guess who does know? Jesus. And so we're going to look towards Jesus and say, Jesus, we don't know what tomorrow holds, but you do. And so we are going to reach out to you like you did earlier, and we're going to say, Jesus, we need you right now because we need comfort. We need hope. And so I'm going to ask you this. For this week, you're at home. We're going to do some Zoom hangouts. We're going to do some different things to keep you connected and engaged with us. But on your own, would you do the daily replay? Maybe you go back and watch that video. And maybe you remind and kind of refresh yourself of how to pray that way. But do that every single day. Maybe it's before you jump on another Netflix binge, or maybe it's before you go on YouTube, or maybe it's before you go to bed. Maybe it's when you wake up. But do the daily replay. Read a story. Maybe start in the Gospel of John. The Gospel of John, which is the fourth book of the New Testament, by the way, is a book of stories. It's a story of Jesus. And so maybe you read over these next few weeks, maybe you read a chapter of John a day, and you read a story about Jesus every day, just to remind yourself that Jesus is with you. But United students, remember this. Jesus calls out to you in the boat that's rocking and the waves are crashing. He gives us three things that I want you to remember. Write down, highlight, underline, put it on your wall in your room in this season. He tells us this. He says, have courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. Hey, I love you, United students. I miss you so much. As I mentioned in an earlier announcement video, Pastor Dave, I've asked him to help me in some of this, and he's going to be hosting some Zoom hangouts, and I'm helping some other things in the church, and so he's